guys, it's Angelo, and seeing as we're not quite done yet with discussing Shadow Priests in Mythic Plus content, today we're going to break down exactly in which dungeons we are strong and in which dungeons we are kind of weak. Currently, Legion has 13 different dungeons that are available for us on Mythic Plus or Keystone level difficulty, and we're going over all of them to see which support our playstyle and which don't. I've touched on this subject briefly in previous videos like my Shadow Priest Mythic Plus guide or my Mythic Plus discussion back in patch 7.1.5, which were included in my Shadow Priest game tips, so definitely a longer time ago. Since then, many things have changed, and it's important for us to take a look at which dungeons we do well in and in which we may struggle a little. Now, as objective and as reasonable as this video will be, please keep in mind that my personal opinions will unpreventably flow into the decisions I make when ranking the different dungeons. I am of course assuming a Shadow Priest's optimal group setup here with high gear and generally favorable factors, but a dungeon that is one of our best in my opinion, even with an explanation of why, may not be a dungeon you like at all. Nonetheless, I will stay as constructive as possible and will base my decisions off of reasoning and of course off of evidence. That being said, and in order to keep the information in this video organized, I will rank the different dungeons into their respective rankings, grouping them from lowest to mediocre and finally to highest. That way I can keep the video at a length that is enjoyable for everyone while not missing any important details. But enough of that now, without any further ado, let's go right ahead and have a look. First off, let's do a quick checkup on all of the available Mythic Keystone or Mythic Plus dungeons. Altogether, there are 13 available Keystone dungeons at this point, with the Blackrook Hold, the Cathedral of Eternal Night, the Court of Stars, the Darkheart Thicket, the Eye of Ashara, the Halls of Valor, Lower Karazhan, as well as of course Upper Karazhan, the Maw of Souls, Neltharion's Lair, the Seat of the Triumvirate, the Archway, and finally the Vaults of the Wardens. All dungeons are available on any Keystone level of course, and all have their own challenges and advantages for us as well as disadvantages. Our worst dungeons, or most difficult ones to compete in, are the Vault of the Wardens, the Seat of the Triumvirate, the Court of Stars, and the Maw of Souls. The Vault of the Wardens is a fun dungeon in my opinion, but fun doesn't really compensate for what it lacks for us. Heavy AoE at the beginning of a run, and bosses only offering limited cleave opportunities like Tirathon Saltharil, the first boss, Inquisitor Tormentorum, or Ashgolm. Glazer, the fourth boss, clearly hates us with his damage shield, and Cordana Felsong hates us even more because she becomes completely untargetable for a period of time, which will completely nullify our dot damage. The Seat of the Triumvirate is very similar in its problems for us, as there is a ton of heavy AoE damage, but not a lot of 2 to 3 target cleave opportunities. A lot of you are probably surprised that I've listed the Court of Stars here, but let me explain why. Very similar to the Maw of Souls in both its timer, its mob counter, as well as boss setup, the Court of Stars requires a lot of early AoE damage, followed by a decent first boss, which then chains onto only more AoE damage in form of the Imps, followed by a lot of movement, which lets us drop Void Forms often. Bosses from there on out are essentially single target only, which doesn't really benefit us at all either. Both the Maw of Souls and the Court of Stars are absolutely no bad dungeons, but they definitely require you to equip your legendary chest, the Heart of the Void, to do serious competitive damage. Hellia, by the way, is a perfect example of how a boss can screw us over, similar to Cordana Felsong. If your group is too slow, or if you're doing a high Keystone level, she will become untargetable for a while, which will completely ruin your damage output. If you're too fast on the other hand, you will not have enough time to ramp up your damage, and the tentacles at the beginning of the boss will die way too quick, and Hellia herself will do so as well. In our mid-range dungeons, we have Lower Karazhan, the Darkheart Thicket, the Halls of Valor, and the Cathedral of Eternal Night. Now, none of these dungeons are bad for us, in fact they're all very good. Trash in Lower Karazhan is either so much that you don't even have to dot, but can just Mind Sear off of one target and do heavy damage, or if you have the legendary chest, can just dot up everything and Void Eruption stuff to do an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage. Lower Karazhan would be a perfect example of how we can do a lot of AoE damage if the requirements are right. The bosses in Lower Karazhan are solid as well, with Morose pulling ahead of the rest, as his adds and himself will allow us to do absolutely astronomical amounts of damage, especially when combined with Bloodlust, a potion, and some lucky Trinket procs. The Darkheart Thicket, as well as the Halls of Valor, are prime examples of proper distribution of trash packs, as well as a healthy amount of mobs in each group for us to spread our dots. Most mobs also have something for you to interrupt or are stunnable, which is even better because that way you can proc your Cephas secret pretty frequently. The Cathedral of Eternal Night is probably the best dungeon for us in this grouping, as it combines proper trash dynamic, similar to the Darkheart Thicket and the Halls of Valor, with bosses we can cleave off of. Every boss except for one lets you cleave off of something, as well as proc your Cephas, so in all honesty this dungeon has the optimal settings for us. Finally, we have our best dungeons. These are Neltharion's Lair, the Archway, Blackrook Hold, the Eye of Ashara, and Upper Karazhan. What all of these dungeons share are the good parts about the middle tier dungeons, like good trash distribution and a good amount of adds, so not too many but also not too few, as well as good boss dynamics. What they succeed in though, in my opinion, is the fact that you can chain most trash packs incredibly smoothly and can either take some trash into a boss fight, or the bosses have a beautiful way for you to cleave off of. Neltharion's Lair, the Archway, Blackrook Hold, and the Eye of Ashara are the prime examples here, while Upper Karazhan is debatable, but the fact that the Curator and Medivh allow you to do some nice cleave, as well as the chess event, which is a trash pack by the way, allows you to do so as well. Vizadum, the last boss in Karazhan, is a bit frustrating on lower keystones, but on higher keystone levels you can do some pretty sick damage on the third ship if you save your Void form and dot up all of the adds. Overall, these dungeons are definitely the ones where you'll find yourself doing the most damage, at least in the most convenient way for a Shadow Priest. The timers in these dungeons are high enough on medium to high keystone levels to typically make use of Bloodlust twice, which is nice as this allows for beautiful Void form periods either during a boss fight or during a big trash pack. Highest on the list for me personally would be the Archway and Neltharion's Lair, but all of the dungeons in this rank are pretty much on par in my opinion. Overall, most dungeons are pretty fun to play at this point. Since the Shadow Priest doesn't fall victim to the issues it did to in previous patches anymore, we now find ourselves being much more effective in a variety of situations now, which allows us to be pretty competitive in Mythic Plus overall. On screen now is a little recap of what we had just discussed in this video, but again, your personal Mythic Plus preferences could be different and you may think that dungeons I've listed lower should be higher up on the list or even vice versa. If so, be sure to let me know what your favorite Mythic Plus dungeon is, which one you think we're best at, and why. If you think I missed any important details, be sure to let us all know in the comments below so that we can improve even further together. If this video was helpful to you, leaving a like would go a long way, and if you'd like to stay updated on future content, feel free to subscribe. Now, as always, have a good one my friends, have a happy new year, and I will see you all in the next one.
Lifetime in repeat.